one other thing that CCP Global does, default simulation that we do on an annual basis. So the first exercise that we did on the default simulation was in 2023, which was very successful. Again, all clearinghouses across the globe tested a similar scenario. The same member basically defaulted, from Australia all the way to Canada. CCPs participated and ensured, they were operationally ready to handle such a scenario. CCP Global has been instrumental in facilitating such exercises. There was a lot of discussion around non-default losses. It's an institution that basically brings regulators together on topics where, workshops are done and, there's an exchange of ideas.
How does ICE ensure a high degree of transparency in its clearing processes?
ICE operates 6 clearinghouses across North America, Europe, Asia, and Canada. We've basically done a lot of effort around transparency over the last many years. We started with our rulebooks that are available, all of the ex-ante provisions, how CCPs operate, our risk management frameworks, our risk management practices are all listed in the rule books. But on top of that, more recently, with the CPMI IOSCO, standards coming out, we've also released our public quantitative disclosures as well as qualitative disclosure frameworks that usually consist information of, what's the legal framework that CCPs operate in, what type of collateral we accept, what our margin methodologies are in terms of credit stress tests, what's our methodologies around credit stress testing, what back testing processes we employ, our operational considerations. So there's a lot that's listed in our disclosure frameworks in a qualitative way. And then soon after that, we started publishing on a quarterly basis our quantitative disclosures that have, lots of data points around these same principles and considerations, but also allow, external stakeholders to capture the quarter-over-quarter deltas. So they can actually truly see what's happened quarter-over-quarter with all of our CCPs, and it's all out there in the public forum. Today, from a public quantitative disclosure angle, we've published 39 quarters so far. So that 39 quarters worth of data points are available, out in the public. Also, I think it was Q2 of 2020 when we started doing our webcasts. And these are recordings that are available to the public to basically grasp, where we describe what's changed quarter over quarter. So this was, again, executive level engagement. It was myself and Chris Edmonds, at the time, who was the head of clearing, who used to do these recordings. We invited questions from our members, from our clients, and so there was an active engagement available at the time. So it was a really good effort. I mean, you can imagine the amount of investment we've done in offering transparency to all of our participants and members.
How does central bank account access for collateral deposits help CCPs?
ICE Clear Credit was determined systemically important CCP by the FSOC, but we don't have that status with ICE Clear US and ICE Clear Europe as of today. We receive a lot of collateral from our members, and when it was the Russia-Ukraine war period, we had somewhere in the range of $260 billion worth of collateral posted with us from our members. That's a huge amount of cash that we bring in on a day-to-day basis. In a time of stress, what's interesting that you would observe is ICE Clear Credit, because they had access to the central bank deposits of the Fed, they were able to post all of that cash very easily, at the Fed. They didn't have to worry about the repo capacities. They didn't have to go invest in treasuries. They took that collateral, pushed it at the bank, which is the safest place available to the CCPs. If you look at ICE Clear Europe and ICE Clear US, we had to go find repo capacity. Now, what's interesting about reverse repos is that you don't have as many credit-worthy dealers available for you where you can push that capacity. So from time to time, especially in times of stress, that capacity becomes lesser. And it usually takes a few months to even put an agreement in place where you have an agreement where you're posting a lot of that cash with the dealer. It does tie up your capacity from that angle. Plus, we also have concentration metrics that you have to abide by. You may not be able to, diversify all of your deposits in reverse repo with dealers. So you have to look at those sort of things where, it becomes a little bit limited. So from that angle, I think having access to the central bank is probably the best thing we could avail. I think on the euro side, Iceland Europe had access to ECB, which was very helpful. So all of our euro deposits went there. Bank of England, we had access to, the GBP depository account. So, all of our GBP requirements went there, but the US dollars had to be pushed into reverse repo. And that capacity becomes a little limited in stress times. Plus, when you have stress times, you do late margin calls. Sometimes calls are made later in the day. And to go and post some of that cash at the dealer, which is already shut down, you may not be able to post that cash. So it goes and sits in an unsecured commercial bank account. So we prefer to not do that. So we've always advocated access to depository accounts.
What clearing member disclosure improvements are needed?
Just to go back to what the clearinghouses do today, we've got the PQDs, which is the best example available today in terms of disclosures in the financial industry space. Mimicked, or we don't have something comparable on the clearing member side of things. So we would, appreciate, if clearing members had that level of disclosure available to us from a risk metrics angle. So it would be nice to see what level of concentration we have from the clients into the clearing members. How much margin is being moved. So when you look at the clients that are in the non-cleared space, there is literally no data available to us. So like you saw in the LME case or the Archegos case, those markets were pretty opaque. Also, when we had the 2020 crash, the treasury markets had a lot of stress in the markets. And the more you clear markets, I think there's a lot of transparency. So we would definitely like more and more disclosure coming from the members for the cleared pieces as well as non-cleared pieces, specifically from the margin methodologies, the margin changes, what sort of concentration they have in place, their stress tests, back tests.
What are the most pressing policy or regulatory issues facing CCP globally?
If you just look at all the topics that we've advocated for, I think some of the things that CCPs come together and speak on various issues, one of them being treasury clearing. There was another topic that came up that was related to the prudential capital requirements that came up from the Fed and the FDIC and the collective set of prudential regulators, which would then go and increase the client capital requirements on the clients and just make clearing ecosystem more expensive. Topics like these, CCP Global is an instrument where all the CCPs come together and advocate on topics and then present our views to the markets.
How has the role of CCPs changed?
Most of the CCPs are modernizing their margin models now across the globe. So we are also, ICE is in the process of going on to portfolio-based model with IRM2, which, again, is a great example of how collectively kind of going into portfolio-based margining where, we consider diversification, effects of, and as well as stress that comes into the market. And it's just a better model. And, you've seen CME do that, you've seen ICE do that, Eurex has done that. So there's clearing houses that are evolving their margin models in general. I think the other topic that, we've been looking at is 24-hour trading. I think that's another hot topic that's being discussed in terms of how CCPs may evolve in the future. But again, it all depends on the operational readiness. It depends on a lot of different factors. Does the market demand something like that? Is there a market demand for 24/7 trading? Most of the agricultural traders probably don't trade on the weekends. So it really depends on, where there's a demand, ICE will probably make sure that we offer. We are operationally and technologically ready to do something like that. But again, it has to go with, all the other prudent risk management efforts around it. You need to make sure that you're able to move collateral. You need to make sure that, that there are clients in place. And if a default happens, is there adequate amount of can be port positions. So you have to think about all those factors, as you go into your weekend and long hour tradings. So these are the topics that, are being discussed today, and where markets may eventually evolve. I think the other piece that where the markets may evolve is tokenized collateral. Again, it's been discussed widely. So we'll see if it's legally possible to hold tokenized collateral, and the regulation around it, and the code around it. But if that's probably where we may end up going.